So yesterday, I think it was yesterday, I was on flowing a tantrum about the Democratic Party not being forthcoming on taking the lead in issues, and particularly focused on crime. And I remember when Newt Gingrich was the leader of the Republicans in the House, and they had this contract with America. Some of us called it a contract on America. Big deal. Being snide never got us anywhere. But and they got them, and they won the next election. They got the majority in the House. Then they lost it after that because they're idiots and didn't know what they were doing. But that message was: here's the Republicans. We're out of power. We're not in the White House. We're not. Bill Clinton's president. We don't have a majority in the House. We don't have anything. But we have ideas and we have views. And we're standing here as a group on the steps of the Capitol, and we're telling you this is how we would govern if we were given the opportunity. And sure enough, they took the House back the next time. We need something similar. We need a contract with the American people as to what the Democratic Party stands for, not just what we're against. Now, to some extent, being against something means you're also for it. For example, I'm against the big bill. But I'm for something to take its place, which would involve some tax cuts, involve a whole slew of things in terms of tax policy. Jack Kennedy did a great job of using the tax code to encourage people to invest. I built a shopping center to a large extent because of the tax breaks provided for investments with the investment tax credit. So it is a negative in that we want to get rid of that big bill. It's a positive in that it provides what the opportunity to say, we want to get rid of this and replace it with that. And the big issue that I was up in arms about was crime and how the Democrats are weak on crime. We don't stand up for the little people. And when Trump put people in the National Guard troops in Washington, Democrats found all kinds of ways to complain about that. And the dumbest thing they did was to say, how could he do that when statistically crime is down substantially in Washington, D.C.? Statistically, on a percentage basis. So I want to talk about that briefly, and then I want to show you what I read in the New York Times today. Sometimes the New York Times is boring, and sometimes it's got some good stuff in it. So, and I know my Republican friends say, how would you read the New York Times? It's a propaganda. Well, it's not. It's a reason it's the number one paper in the world. When I travel a lot. I mean, China. The paper that all the educated people are reading over there was the Chinese version of the New York Times in English. And I read the New York Times when I was in China. And every time I was in Hong Kong, I read the New York Times. Every place I go in the world, and I've been all over the world, the New York Times is there because people recognize uniformly that it is a high caliber newspaper which brings you news that you don't get other places. And it's not fake news, it's real news. So I'll read this article in the New York Times about the black mayors getting together to talk about exactly what I was complaining about yesterday, which is where are the Democrats on crime. But statistics, I cover a lot of different subjects that are related. Sometimes I jump from subject to subject, but I always try to come back to where I was. And where I was talking about statistics. So there's a famous saying, there are lies, there are damn lies, and there's statistics. And the lie of statistics is when you use statistics to talk about the percentage increase or percentage decrease of something, that's irrelevant. And when you're talking those terms, what you're doing is you're deliberately ignoring the actual facts. Not the percentage increase, for example, in crime, but the number of crimes committed. For example, and that's true with decrease, and you had people coming out and Washington saying, "Well, it's not a crisis because look, statistically, violent crime and murders are going down in Washington D.C." People who live there and people who work there, like I have many times, I've had cases there, don't give a damn about the statistics. What they care about is how do they feel in terms of safety. But let me just show you how absurd statistics can be. Let's assume you have a city of 3 million people. And in year one, there are 3 murders in that city. That's pretty low, and they're going to be individual cases, and nobody is saying that's a pattern. The next year, they're down 30%, so instead of 3 people being killed, only 2 people are killed. Do you think that matters to anybody? It's still a tiny figure. It's still not significant of any sort of widespread social problem. Let's take the flip. Same percentage of people living in that city. Only this time, there's 100,000 murders. 100,000. That's indicative of a problem. The next year, it's down 30%. There's only 70,000 people were murdered. You think that's okay? That people now feel safe because, oh, there were only 70,000 people killed last year in this city. See, now if you want to look at a percentage, look at the percentage of murders versus the population of that city. So if you got 3 million people and you've got 100,000 murders, that's a pretty substantial percentage of the population that's murdered. That may be a relevant statistic, but you don't need to do the math to just say, that's a horrible number. Statistics be damned, it's the number. And this feeling of being safe in Washington, D.C. is so significant. I can tell you, I've been around the world many times. I have gone out, I love to walk until I got arthritis. And I've been walking in almost every major city in this planet. Kenya to Kuala Lumpur to London, France, Paris, Hong Kong, Beijing, Rio, Mexico City. You know, I would go on, but just, you know, I've been all kinds of cities all over the world. I don't go out for walks in downtown areas in this country for the same reason that Trump is talking about what's going on in Washington, D.C. The only place that I have ever been out walking at night in a city, in a major metropolitan area, and felt unsafe was in Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C., our nation's capital. And where in Washington was I feeling unsafe? Was I walking down in some neighborhood where there's a high crime rate and a bunch of gangs selling drugs all over the place and killing people right and left? No, that's not the problem. It's a problem for the people who live there, and it's a problem that needs to be addressed. But it's not the problem Trump's talking about. Trump's talking about the reaction of people who come to Washington, D.C. from all over the country to see our nation's capital, which is beautiful. And people come from all around the world to our nation's capital to see it because it's beautiful and what it represents. And they've got nice office buildings. And during the day, and I'm not talking about the government, I'm talking about like K Street, Nell Street, all those areas. You've got restaurants, you've got office buildings, you've got crowds of people all over the place walking around, nicely dressed, looking good. Feels like a nation's capital. You go to the Washington Monument, there's tourists there with their pictures, and the mall is there. The Vietnam Veterans Memorial is there. The Capitol building is one of the most beautiful buildings in the world. And everything is fine. And I remember one time I was staying in a hotel, and it wasn't one of the most expensive hotels, but it was a nice hotel. It was not in a bad neighborhood. And I had a meeting in Senator Kennedy's office, and with the Judiciary Committee, I was talking to him about some patent issues. And I'm walking back, and it wasn't real late. The sun has gone down just briefly, like maybe 20 minutes earlier. And I'm walking by, and all of a sudden I'm walking along the sidewalk. On every street corner, there's groups of young black men, not dressed in suits, not looking like they're getting ready to go to an office, wearing hoodies, doing nothing. Well, they're not doing anything. What's wrong with that? Well, I can tell you, when you're walking past a group of 3 or 4 or 5 black guys just standing around at a street corner, and they're glaring at you as you walk by, and I'm not somebody who scares easily. I'm not bragging, but it's true. I just don't. I felt really nervous to the point where I was almost tempted to cross the street and walk up on the other side of the street, but my pride wouldn't let me because I'm Irish. So I just kept on walking. But I can tell you, I was holding my breath when I walked by these guys, and they were just within a few feet of me, and they're all just glaring at me with that look that they could, hey, you something me, I'll cut you. Like that's what they wanted to do. And I'm like, if that got to me, and I went back, and I 3 blocks I encountered the same damn thing. They weren't people that were robbing, were jacking cars. I have no doubt that maybe some of them intended to do that eventually. They weren't sticking knives in people that I could see. They weren't doing anything, but they were standing there and they were a menacing presence. I can tell you now, if they have National Guard people on those corners, you're not going to have the gangs that are standing there terrifying people. People who lived on there, young staff people who lived on there, nice homes. I've visited many of them. Often they don't have parking. They got to park on the street, and their cars get jacked. You shouldn't have that in Washington D.C., our nation's capital. Of all places in this country that should be absolutely safe, it's in Washington D.C. And it's not. I don't give a damn what the percentages are, and the people who live there will tell you, whether they're Republicans or Democrats, they do not feel safe in that city. And often these are staffers or people who are well paid. Georgetown's a little different. That's out of sight cost-wise. But the rest of it, K Street, that whole area with all the nice parks and everything that are around there, they're filled with people hanging out, looking menacing. I don't care if they're committing crimes or not. They are a menace, and they are giving a terrible impression to people who come to our nation's capital and have a right to feel safe there, to bring their kids there, to bring their grandchildren there, to walk around at night because it's beautiful at night. Seeing the moon over the Capitol is gorgeous. People have a right to feel safe. And Trump has tapped into that, and the Democrats ignore that at the peril when Democrats go around saying, "Oh, well, he's trying to federalize this, and he's making black people feel they have to have conversations with their kids and tell them not to hang out on street corners at night wearing hoodies. And if they meet the cops, they have to be respectful." They need to be told that. I didn't need to be told that. I remember getting pulled over for a cop when I was 16. I just had my driver's license. I got pulled over for speeding. I was terrified. Did I smart off to the cop? Of course not. Didn't even occur to me to be anything but respectful. He still gave me a ticket. I should have smarted off to him. Anyway, it's like, give me a break. People have a right to feel safe. And Trump is telling them that, and the Democrats are saying, "Oh, but the statistics are showing that." So, New York Times. Today, hot off the presses. You stick with me, you get up to the date news. I'm not going to read this whole article to you, although I should. It's called "Mayors of Democratic Cities Seek a United Front Against White House Pressure," among the statements made by some of the people at that meeting. And these were all black mayors. This one fellow, this is Mr. Bibb, Justin Bibb of Cleveland. That's a particular pet peeve of mine, because when I was a kid, we still loved to go downtown to Cleveland. Go to the Higbees, go to the station. We're going to just hang around in the parks. It was beautiful. Now, you don't go down to Cleveland if you're white, if you're wearing a nice suit, if you're black and you're dressed like you just came from the office. You don't walk around down there. That's outrageous. St. Louis is another one. Used to love to go to St. Louis when I was in high school. We'd go to the park, we'd go to the zoo, we'd go to the plays, we'd go to Gaslight Square and watch. Goldie Hawn was a go-go dancer back then. And it was fun times. People loved to go to St. Louis, and you walk down the beat, people walking all around St. Louis, well dressed, going in and out of clubs and restaurants. Now, you take your life in your hands if you walk around downtown St. Louis. St. Louis of all places. New Orleans the same way. Jackson, Mississippi, the murder capital of the United States on a percentage basis. Here we go, percentage basis. It's intolerable. Los Angeles, San Francisco, San Diego. And it's not just the crime, it's also homelessness, which is a real problem. Homeless people should not be owning our parks. They should not be owning our streets. Trump is right. They shouldn't be in the Grand Central. In the Union Station in D.C. They should be in shelters, and if they refuse to go to shelters, they should go to jail. They should not be taking over these public places. So it's a combination of those things, and I can tell you, it's not a racial thing, although a lot of people think it is, because the people who suffer from this are of all races. The people inflicting this are generally black. You don't see a whole lot of white gangbangers hanging around in downtown D.C. wearing hoodies. But they're not reflective of the African American population by any means, but that happens to be the nature of the people that with whom we need to deal. So here's this black mayor of Cleveland, and his name is Justin Bibb, and he says, if we're on our heels talking about crime and not talking about how we've done the work to reduce crime based on a serious on safety approach, he added, we are going to lose. And that's what I was trying to say yesterday. So he apparently was listening. He says, he outlined several steps he felt mayors could take. Be more visible and communicate what they're doing to improve public safety, and he went on and on and on. Then he says, despite the fact, and this is what I was talking about, that crime has fallen in many major cities. It's fallen on a percentage basis. That's me talking. Democrats are navigating a difficult balancing act, trying to push back on the federal incursion into the nation's capital without ceding ground to Mr. Trump on issues of public safety. Now that to me is a fundamental problem. Stop pushing back on the federal incursion into the nation's capital. It's the nation's capital. We should be applauding what he's doing there and saying, me too, only we're going to go further. For example, we're going to give that how many $1 billion it is that the federal government is holding up from Washington, D.C. for no good reason at all, just another Trump ploy. We're going to give them back that money, but we're going to talk about how it should be spent. And this is what I was talking about the Democrats need, forget the mayors, the Democrats in Congress need to put together a comprehensive anti-crime bill that is going to address the concerns of the American people, including the ability to take back their downtown areas all over this country. That should be a priority of the Democrats, and we should accentuate that and tell people, hey, this is where we are. We're leading the charge on this issue, Mr. and Mrs. Middle America. We are on your side, and we know you're fed up with this, and so are we, and we're going to do something about it, and then we need to have a comprehensive plan. What's the comprehensive plan? Don't ask me. I just thought of this right now. But we need to do it. We can do it. We can get, unless the help of people who really want to do it, some of that tax money that we want to get back from the great big beautiful bill could be used for that purpose. It's important for us to be ahead of these issues that matter instead of trying to constantly attack Trump and trying to fight, well, we have to push back here, we have to push back there. No, we need to lead. And if anything, the problem, what we should be complaining about with Trump is that he's not doing enough. Not that he's doing too much. So, what else did he have to say here? Mr. Trump has commanded bullying. Polling shows that Americans tend to trust him on crime. They shouldn't be. They should be trusting us. Efforts at democratic unity on a hot-button issue like public safety go only so far in a party that is home to both traditional tough-on-crime Democrats, that's moi, and I used to be a public defender, so it's not like I've never been on the side of criminals, but I have seen the attitudes up front and personal, and they're not pretty. And I didn't prevent me from fully representing my people, often successfully, because the cops did a lousy job of putting a case together. But it also gives you an insight as to how so many of these criminals view the rest of us, and what they really lack is empathy, which is, one of the first signs of a sociopath. They lack empathy. So many violent criminals just don't have empathy. It isn't that they want to hurt people, it's that they don't care. They're indifferent. They'll shoot you because you happen to be in a 7-Eleven when they're robbing it. With no thought whatsoever to what you're doing to the person, to their families, nothing. I saw that over and over again, and it's disturbing. He said, in a sign of just how perilous this issue is for Democrats, an AppNorth poll released on Wednesday that was conducted after National Guard troops began to deploy in Washington found that about half the public approved of how Mr. Trump was handling crime issues. His overall job approval rating has ticked up compared with an AppNorth poll taken in July. The poll showed that 55% of the public thought it was acceptable for the U.S. military and National Guard to assist the local police in major cities, though only a third supported a federal government takeover of major city police departments. And that kind of reflects my attitude as well. I don't see anything wrong with putting the National Guard out there on street corners so people can walk around at night in our nation's capital and not feel threatened. They can park their car at the curb in front of their apartment and not expect that when they get up in the morning it's going to be gone. I moved to New Haven, Connecticut one time. I was there for a case. Stayed in a nice place, a nice part of town. Parked my car in the curb, which I was allowed to, on the street in front of where I was staying. I walked out the next day. My car radio was gone. Somebody broken a window in that neighborhood, broken a car window, reached in there and taken out my radio. And it was in a nice part of town, in New Haven, Connecticut. It's like, this has got to stop. It did stop there because I'm not there anymore. So, the public's perception is that if you send in the troops, you're strong. If you debate statistics, you're weak, said Mayor Alan Weber of Santa Fe, New Mexico, urging Democrats to avoid answering concerns about crime with data about falling rates. So these people listened to my podcast the other day, and they're copying me, and they're not giving me any credit at all. It's the story of my life. But I just thought it was kind of cool to pick that up and see that, hey, I'm not the only one who feels this way. But the Congress has got to start taking the bull by the horns, and we've got to stop being weak and not doing our job. Because our job as Congress people, as Democrats, their job, mine if I get there, is to spend some time and effort putting together comprehensive pieces of legislation to deal with these problems, instead of simply saying, oh, tisk, tisk, every time Trump does something. And every time we do that, we lose a whole bunch of people. Because the average person doesn't go along with the tisking of the Democrats over everything Trump does. They want to see us provide some leadership. And I see Democrats all wringing their hands. Why are we losing? I don't understand why we're losing. We're on the right side of so many diverse issues, and every little tiny interest group that's out there, we support them, and yet we're still losing. How does this happen? Well, that's how it happens. You're not doing a damn thing. So on the off chance that I should get elected for something, I'm going to make it my priority to work on, and if I have to draft and introduce my own legislation, I'll do it, to deal with these problems of concern to the people. Number one, of course, the national debt, which I keep talking about. There are a number of others, and I'm not going to go into them right now, but they include things like stopping the president from basically destroying the Center for Disease Control. That's not a great way to go, Mr. President. Taking over firing the person in charge of putting together the employment statistics in this country. You think anybody's ever going to trust employment statistics from any Trump hack anymore? Businesses need those statistics to plan. These tariffs are terrible. They're absolutely outrageous, and they haven't hit yet, but they're going to, and they are a huge tax on American people. And Trump's out there saying, oh, well, look at here. Look at all the revenue that's coming in. Yeah, from the sales taxes that the American people are paying on all of these tariffs. And, and Republicans never learn, and the American people never learn, because you people out there don't know anything about history, and people complain that I talk about history. Shame on you. I remember the Smoot-Hawley tariffs in 1931, which took the U.S. Depression and really sent it into overdrive and caused basically a worldwide depression, which ultimately resulted in World War II. That was the Smoot-Hawley tax. Before that, we had the McKinley tariffs. Now, just so that those of you who follow history understand that even though they're called the McKinley tariffs because he was the one who enforced them with disastrous consequences, that bill carries his name because it's kind of a little known fact. I know because I follow these things even back then. I live in the past. That the McKinley bill was introduced by him when he was a congressman. That's why it has his name, and then he enforced it when he was president. But it was a disaster. Tariffs have never worked well for the United States. Individual tariffs might get pointed at, but widespread tariffs, disaster. And these tariffs are the worst we've ever had. So we're going to see that. These are things that Democrats need to be addressing. We also need to be addressing the everything about that great big beautiful bill, and which I just discussed earlier. But another thing that's in there is the attack on Medicaid. Now, stop, Democrats! Stop saying that he's trying to take people's Medicaid away from them by these areas that they've carved out. They're not doing that. They're not taking Medicaid away from individuals. Pay attention. What they are doing is taking it away from hospitals. because the groups that they've identified, people they mistakenly call illegal, and incidentally, there's no such thing as a legal status of being an illegal. First of all, it's not a crime to be in this country, no matter how you got in there. It's not a crime to be in this country. Being, a state of being, is not a crime. There is no crime about being in this country without papers, without having permission to come here. It may be a misdemeanor if you come across the border. A misdemeanor, that doesn't make you a criminal person. It means that you may have committed a crime, but even that, you can't say somebody is a criminal until they've been convicted. Say, well, they did it. What's the difference? Well, the difference, first of all, and I'm just going to digress briefly, but one of the elements of crime is intent. So if you were brought over here by your parents, you didn't have intent to break a statute, a regulation of the United States government, which when you're 6 years old, you didn't even know they existed. So even though that person is here without papers, they didn't commit a crime. Anyway, bottom line is, stop calling them illegals. But this saying that illegals are not entitled to Medicaid, and shiftless, no-good bums who won't work for a living or even try to find a job, those people shouldn't be getting Medicaid anyway. What do you think happens? You think that an illegal, has a medical problem, and he goes down to the local doctor and he says, "Hey, doc," and he doesn't say to talk to the doc because the doc ain't talking to him. He talks to the front desk. He says, "Hey, I got to see the doc. I got this problem." And they don't even look at him. They say, "Can I see your insurance card?" "I ain't got no insurance card." "What do you mean I have an insurance card?" "I don't have an insurance card. I don't have insurance." None? No insurance? No insurance. Okay, well, you see that door you just walked in? Well, you can just walk backwards the same way you came in. "Well, when am I going to see the doctor?" "You ain't going to see the doctor, pal. You don't have insurance. Now get out of here." Huh? Well, okay, and walks the next person. "You got insurance? Let me see your card." That's the first thing they ask. They didn't even look at your face. They want to see the card. "You ain't got no card. Why not?" "Well, I ain't got a job." "You don't have a job? And you don't have a card? And you don't have insurance? You see that door you just walked? You see that guy walking backwards over there? Well, you walk backwards too and see if you can follow the same path right on out in the parking lot and just keep on going. You're not going to get in to see a doctor without insurance in this country. Don't be ridiculous." So what do? You got run over by a car. You walk into the doctor's office. First, say, "Why are you walking if you got run over by a car?" "I don't know and I don't care." That's not even important. Why are you bringing that up? So somehow somebody brought you to that doctor's office. They run you out of there, and where do you go? You go right down to the emergency room right down the street. And guess what? They have to take you. They have to take you. It doesn't matter whether you're, quote, illegal or whether you are a shiftless bum who won't look for a job. They have to take it. And then what they do is they go to the state and they say, "Hey, can we get reimbursed?" And the state normally says, "Sure." And then the state turns around to Medicaid and says, "Hey, we need some money to reimburse this hospital." They're taking that away. So who's going to suffer? The hospitals. Big hospitals are not going to suffer that much. What they will do, the big hospitals, put your thinking cap on, you Republicans, what do you think they're going to do? You think they're just going to eat that? No, they're not going to eat that. They're going to raise their rates for everybody else, which means your insurance is going to go up, which means everybody's going to end up paying for it anyway. So they're not doing anything to help you. They're doing something that's just smoke and mirrors to make you think they're doing something. And this is what's wrong with the Republican Party. One of the many things that's wrong with it. Democrats need to be clear about that. And when they say that the Republicans are undermining Medicaid, be specific. People aren't that stupid. They can understand what's going on. Spell it out. We should have an in-depth analysis of these issues by the Democratic Congress signed by the Speaker of the House. I mean, if it's the Speaker then, if not, the Minority Leader, saying these are the issues. Here's what's wrong with what's going on. Here's what the Democrats stand for, and this is how we intend to address them. So that people can say, "Oh yeah, the Democratic Party actually stands for something, and we agree with it." If they don't agree with it, too bad. Then we just lose. But that doesn't mean we change what we're doing to appeal to people's worst natures. We're honest about it. We address these things head on. That's hard work. And with all due respect to Mr. Mastro, I think is probably a fine person. When's the last time he put together a comprehensive, complicated piece of legislation to deal with these problems? No. All he does is rubber stamp and vote for everything the Trump administration puts in front of them. They're not doing anything out there, these Republicans in Congress. When's the last time they took the lead on anything? Now President Bush is saying, I mean Trump rather, I gotta be careful. I make that mistake before. Trump has now came out with a statement the other day with his arm around poor little Speaker Johnson and saying, oh, and the Johnsons are putting together a comprehensive anti-crime bill. And Johnson looked at him like he'd been hit in the face with a frying pan. He didn't know what he was talking about, but he said, oh yeah, that's right, yeah, that's right. Now he's got to go figure out something out. That doesn't take the burden off of us. Anyway, I'm beating the same dead horse again, but I just wanted to show you that even the newspaper, in the New York Times, the black mayors getting together and saying, is right. So, it's nice to see. Unfortunately, they left my name out again. Okay, I'm going to say one thing. Probably you haven't gotten this far anyway. I'm thinking of running for Congress. I hate to say this, but we're going to need some money. So if you approve of what we're doing and you want to help us out, go to my webpage, Edward O'Connor for Congress, and there's a right at the beginning it says donate, and you can click on that and it tells you how to send some money if you have a mind to. $5, $20, $1 million, it'd be even better. But you can't donate $1 million because there's restrictions on how much you can donate. But if you could do that, we'd appreciate it. I'm not going to ask people personally for money. Can't do it. It's not my nature. I never even asked my parents for anything when I was a kid. One time I asked my dad for a cat pistol and I got it. Couldn't believe it. I just don't. I can't do it. I can go to people who are interested in talking to me, but I'm not going to go directly to people. But this is an indirect way to do it. So if you want to send some money, I'd appreciate it. If we can't raise money, we're not gonna go forward with the campaign. But that's not going to stop us from talking about the issues. So nice talking to you again. I hope I didn't bore you. Again, yes, I heard that. All right. Have a good day. Au revoir.